Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be starting in 2 minutes. So if you want to move your bums to your seats, we look forward to seeing you in 2 minutes' time. That is probably why you weren't hearing any audio, Diketseng. We only were on a break, and we are going to be commencing in 2 minutes' time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We hope that you had a good break. You had time to stretch your legs, get yourselves a snack, and we are now going to be going into one of those juicy sessions. I see the numbers are growing, so we are just going to give you a chance to continue to join the room. For those that are joining us on the live stream, we appreciate all of your support. We will post links and things to chats and to the rooms in the chat a little bit later, but thank you for reminding us. I would like to introduce myself for those of you that have not met me. I'm Steve Sherman. I'm the Chief Imagination Officer for an educational STEAM-based NGO called livingmaths.com. And we are very excited to be involved in this particular conference. I'm also the media and marketing person for the STEMI collective, and we are out there promoting maths and science, technology, engineering expos and competitions. So we feel it's very important to be involved in a conference like this. This is one of my favorite topics, and I'm so pleased to be able to chair this particular topic. I'm going to introduce the panelists, and we're going to do it slightly differently. Each panelist is going to be given 10 minutes to present their case, and then, of course, we're going to have a Q&A afterwards. And I have David Johnson, Derek Fish, Dr. Derek Fish. In fact, I think they're all doctors, aren't they? They didn't give me all the titles, but we're going to go with first names. We've got David Johnson. I know Derek is a doctor, so Dr. Derek Fish, and of course, Daniel Johnson. And you're going to say, Johnson and Johnson? So when I asked them about their biographies and stuff, I was sent a brief summary, which I would like to read you. But before I do that, did anyone notice the mathematical pattern? D, D, and D. We have them in 3D, ladies and gentlemen. You are going to be live and immersive in this virtual chat. It's almost like an augmented reality or a virtual room. And let me start off by saying that we have all heard of the vaccine Johnson & Johnson, and we've also heard of Pfizer. But today we are going to have Johnson & Johnson and Fish, not Pfizer. We have Derek and David. They are both Daniel's uncles, but yet they are unrelated. Now, that is a mathematical conundrum. Can you work out how that is possible? Derek's piano qualification is grade 7, and that is the average of Daniel and David's piano qualification. That's not even impressive. I past grade 12 at school, so I don't know if that even counts. And of course, Derek's hair coverage is the average of Daniel and David's for now. But you never know. Science and technology can change things. I mean, right now, it might not look good. It might look like I have this beautiful beard and this fancy hair, but every now and again, I have this ability when my computer switches on to change my hair. So you see, you can grow hair if you want to. In this digital world, anything is possible, and you can be Bruno Mars if you want to. So let me carry on by introducing our panelists. They are going to be sharing on the different media to distribute digital materials to disadvantaged students. And of course, with doctorates in physics and engineering and honors in astrophysics, I think it is going to be a fascinating particular topic, because we're going to be looking at inclusivity in the digital era, how to bridge the digital divide. And I cannot think of a more appropriate topic than this one today. We're going to ask David to speak first. Then we're going to ask Derek to speak second, and Daniel last but not least. We'll hand over to David. David Johnson, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks. I really need to borrow that hair system, and I need it to work also when I'm not on my computer, but continuously outdoors. That would be really fun. Okay, so I'm just sharing my screen. Tell me if you can see that. All good?
We can.
Awesome. All right. Thanks very much, Steve. So this is my talk today is going to be about, so let me just move that out of the way so I can see, is about, well, let me first introduce myself. So I'm Dr. David Johnson, the second uncle, adjunct senior lecturer in computer science at UCT. And I'll be talking about INETI, unlocking education lockdown with the INETI platform. So INETI is derived from the Zulu word for the net. And the platform's purpose is really strengthening communities through local community-owned networks and locally driven content creation and services. So this lockdown has taught us one important lesson. Decent internet access is no longer a luxury. We know that it's now an absolute necessity to continue participating in the economy and to remain fully engaged, especially in our education. So before I dive into what INETI is, let me just first quickly paint a picture of what's the status of internet access in the world today. So we've reached this point where we've connected roughly half the world. You could say we've actually connected the easy half of the world, but the real tough work begins now. The other half is going to be much tougher. In South Africa, we've got to the point where we have just under 100% of the population in range of a 3G signal, but only 64% of the country are internet users. So there's this 34% usage gap. And this is really mostly due to affordability of access, affordability of devices, and having the digital skills to use the internet and have access to relevant content. Just because you connect to the internet also doesn't mean that you have embedded meaningful access in all areas of your life, especially work and education. For this, you need high-speed, uncapped, affordable access, which unfortunately is not available to most South Africans. You might remember the data must fall movement in South Africa. So the reality is that the cost to communicate for lower-income users is far higher than for high-income users. For example, in South Africa, a low-income user purchasing prepaid could pay as much as 50 times more than high-income users on 24-month contracts. And this is because low-income users are buying lots of these small prepaid data packages, whereas high-income users have these long contracts. And if you normalize this to income level, a low-income user could be paying up to 500 times more than high-income users. And South Africa, unfortunately, has got some of the highest data costs in Africa. And we also need to talk about what access even means. When we think of access, we think of access to the global internet. But what if the content wasn't on the global internet, but hosted in our local communities? And this is really what INETI is about, and it will become clear as I move through the presentation. So in my journey over the last decade and a half studying internet access in many rural communities in Africa, I've discovered that there's incredibly strong locality of interest in communities. So community members are far more likely, for example, to make a call to somebody a few kilometers away than hundreds or thousands of kilometers away, or would have much more interest in a locally produced image, new music or news than something produced far away. And currently, the problem is that connectivity systems like mobile internet access don't take advantage of this locality of interest. So to illustrate the problem, imagine a hip-hop artist in a South African township uploading a 3-minute music video to YouTube. On pay-as-you-go, this could cost the artist about 48 Rand to upload. And the local fans, depending if it's low definition or high definition, could pay between 12 and 48 Rand to download the song on a prepaid data bundle. So the question is, isn't there a better way for this artist to distribute their music locally, or a teacher to distribute their video lessons locally?
And perhaps even distribute internet equitably to Cape Town, because it seems like we might be having an issue here with connectivity. So we'll see if David is going to be able to return, because it can be a little frustrating when these things happen.
Steve, if not, I can start my presentation if he can't come in.
Okay, all right.
Let's give it a minute though.
These are the realities of the digital divide. So for those of us that have got access to internet, we can certainly appreciate the fact that we've even got internet, but even with having internet, we still don't have internet because it can be dropped at a moment's notice. So you can imagine how frustrated we feel. And if there are people who are disenfranchised and don't have access at all, it can be quite cost prohibitive to try and, I see David is back. So David, you want to give it a bash and continue your presentation?
Can you see the grand irony in being disconnected while talking about connectivity?
We were thinking just that.
Sorry about that. We have a...
It might help if you switch off your video.
Has,
if you switch off your video, then maybe that might also allow for less bandwidth.
It might help. I have switched to my LTE modem because our Vox fiber had a problem in Cape Town today, across the whole of Cape Town. And they said they'd fixed it, but clearly they didn't. I'll fly through the... I'm going to just jump to... How many minutes did I burn there? Probably about 3. So I'm going to just jump quickly now. So what I was trying to say is that with the Inetti, we try to make sure that the services are built with the community so that they collectively own them. And we do this through workshops. And we also build community networks that are owned by the community. So in any network, you need both a network and infrastructure, and you need the services that run over the infrastructure. And these are some pictures of some of the community members being trained and building the local network. So Inetti is basically getting into technical details, built on this local cloudlet server that uses these modular Docker containers. And these are local equivalents of what you would find on the internet. Like there's an equivalent of WhatsApp called Element. Actually, Daniel will talk about his WhatsApp system a bit later, but Element is a local version of that. Nextcloud is a local version of Dropbox. PHPTube is a local version of YouTube. And all these run locally. And the entire system can run on a mini PC, like an Intel NUC with about 1 terabyte of storage to support 1,000 users approximately. And this is, you won't believe it, but the whole server is that tiny little box over there with the little blue light around it. So that's an Intel NUC with 1 terabyte of storage in the data center, I'll call this a data center running in the high school. I'm going to jump over this because I know time is short. So this is where we've deployed a NETI in the south of Cape Town, and the network is fully owned by a local cooperative called Ovicom Dynamic and launched at the end of 2018. These are the current hotspots. We have actually 20. I need to add a few more. The blue dots are where you can get the free Wi-Fi and access the NETI system in Ocean View. These are the cooperative members that own the network, skills ranging from art and education to experience with radio communication. And all the installations are done by the community members themselves. So this is Cameron setting up a mesh node on one of the flats. Those yellow beams are the mesh links to other radios. So this is the captive portal system that comes up when your smartphone connects to the Wi-Fi hotspot. So you'll see a few local free services, like we have Nextcloud and Element or Rocket Chat for local chat. We have Wikipedia, we have TED Talks, and there's also some local school content, which I'll get into a bit later. And you can also access the internet with some vouchers that you enter. So revisiting the original problem of a hip hop artist uploading a video. So now with the NETI system, they upload their music to a NETI. It's super fast, absolutely free, because it uses the local Wi-Fi. And every school pupil or musician fan who wants to see this video stream downloads it over the high definition Wi-Fi network, absolutely free, saving hundreds or thousands of rands for the community. So we noticed when we looked at how people are using the system, video is absolutely king, and TED Talks were really super popular. And we noticed, for example, that the most popular TED Talks were about how to make a TED Talk. So we obviously have some budding media producers in this community. Other interesting popular videos were things like if superpowers were real. Last year, because of lockdown, we launched the NETI system with Ocean View High School to support teachers who need to connect with pupils. And we put a number of interventions in place. We put COVID-19 information, we zero-rated some government sites, and we have the system for teachers who can stay in touch with pupils by pushing their content to the NETI system that students can pick up from Wi-Fi hotspots. So this is now, for example, on the splash page, if a pupil wants to go and get some content, they'll go to their grade, they'll go to their subject area, like computer application technology, and download the content or the videos to their phone so they can watch it while at home. And thanks to the great work from Derek Fish at Uni Zulu Science Center, we also added his videos that he's produced, his science videos, onto the system, so students can now go to the splash page and get any of those Uni Zulu Science Center videos from the server. So with that, thank you. And if you want to know anything more, there is the webpage link, neti.org.za, if you're interested in following up. And sorry about the internet link. Grand irony there.
You don't have to apologize. This is the reality. And I think that's why it's so good that it happened during the session. We're now going to ask Derek. Derek, you're going to take over and you can just start sharing, Derek. There we go.
Okay, so Steve, are you hearing me and seeing my title slide?
We are hearing you and seeing you.
Fantastic. So thanks so much, David. And I really encourage everybody to drop David an email. There's no one who knows more about wireless networks than this man. I've been involved more on the side of content. So I've been running Uni Zulu Science Center for about the last 30 years. And a large part of that has been running matric workshops. We presented these for 25 years to over 200,000 students now at 11 rural venues in northern KZN, covering 3 of the 12 educational districts. Now, with lockdown last year, we realized the matrics would need these workshops more than ever, but we couldn't get them together because of COVID. So a lot of science centers, in fact, most science centers around the world took all the materials and made it digital and made it available virtually. So we took these workshops. Now, typically this is a 4-hour face-to-face workshop. You can see every pupil has a booklet on his lap. And for our face-to-face workshop with a booklet, we took that and converted it into 8 one-hour videos. And you can see these videos are particularly covering the content for paper 1, which is the physics paper. That's where we started. The whole principle of these videos is that facts fade, experiments expire, but skills stick. And that's really important. So it's called essential skills. It's not content-based, because skills are so much more important. For physics, we look at 4 skills: graphs, free body diagrams, solving equations, multiple choice and ratio questions. For example, graphs is picked up in 4 content areas: motion, photoelectric effect, Ohm's law, internal resistance. With all of these, we do the theory, we do the exams, look at simulations and so on. Now, this is the page from the CAPS document about the skills that are required, not content. And the examiner every year, this is a comment from the national examiner, a severe lack of skills is evident. And so that's why we focused on this idea of skills. So this was a great idea. We made 8 one-hour videos. We thought, let's send these out virtually. But then I was so struck by this cartoon, which was shared with me by my friend Peter Wachowski from Pert Industrials. Remember, not all children have the same opportunity. And while some children are sitting inside with good internet and laptops, others are watching through the windows. And I was determined that these children should not be left out. You know, I was going to say to you that the children we presented to before always get second best. Actually, they dream of second best. They've been so let down by the government in their schools. And it's important that they should be offered the best possible product. So again, printed a booklet. 2020 booklet was 48 pages. By printing it in black and white, we got it down to less than 6 Rand a booklet. The videos made about 1.2 gigabytes of files, and we put these on a memory stick and distributed via memory stick. So they were physically distributed to schools. Now, you might think that's crazy, but a 1.2 gigabyte download is simply out of the range of most of our schools. Here you can see last year, staff at UniZulu Science Center packaging the booklets for schools and the memory sticks. Typically, the teacher got a memory stick and the pupils got 1 booklet each. And we actually physically took them to schools where we could. Otherwise, the education department was actually great in helping us distribute them. South African Institute of Physics got on board, and they made Essential Skills their major outreach program for last year and this year. In fact, they printed 20,000 more booklets. So last year we printed 1.2 million pages. The red is our King Letshwayo district, but it was distributed to 4 other districts around the country. And I want to thank the SAIP for this partnership. And normally at this stage, I'd show you a 7-minute promotional video, which tells you all about the 16 hours of video that there now is. But I can't do it on the system. So let me just tell you a little bit about what a typical video looks like. So the videos start with theory, but they are not content-based. In fact, teachers often get frustrated because we don't cover recall questions and so on. We're looking at skills. So where we do theory, like for the Doppler effect, it's done with animations like this one. And they are not talking head videos. They're filled with animations and simulations. I'm doing a workshop about those after this session. I encourage you to join my room. Another simulation with a photoelectric effect. Pupils find it hard to understand what threshold frequency is. This simulation really makes it clear what that is. Using particularly PHET simulations to contrast different. So photoelectric effect is here contrasted with force. And as far as possible, giving learning strategies. So this is my progress method for problem solving, and then that's applied to every one of the problem areas. When we look at graphs of motion, there's a very careful summary of all the graphs of motion put together. So the theory is summarized. We also do live experiments. And again, in my workshop session after this, I'll show you how that can be done. But using particularly software and hardware from Pasco Scientific. This is an oscilloscope which allows me to teach about sound. Unfortunately, I can't make it live now. Using the fantastic match graph, where a motion sensor measures how you walk, compares it with a pre-existing graph and scores you. For example, the Ohm's law and internal resistance experiments. We describe all the experiments, set up, do the experiments just using Pasco software to actually get the current and voltage, gather all the data. The pupils have worksheets for all these experiments. They have to complete them, complete the graphs, complete all the conclusions, and then we'll compare them with the computer-generated data. So just about all the curriculum experiments are done, but from a skills-based approach. Simulations I'll talk a lot about in the next workshop, but there's some great ones online. Boyle's Law, there's another of the PHET ones for straight line graphs. Projectile motion allows you to do fantastic simulations and ask questions around that. Photoelectric effect is a very difficult experiment to do, even in a really good lab. But this simulation is actually quantitative and is just as good as the real thing. Where we do typical textbook exercises like graphs of motion, instead of just giving the answers, we use the simulations to produce the answers live in real time. And all of these simulations are also given to the teachers on the memory stick, so that even without watching the videos, they can also explore these simulations. Applications are very important if science is going to be real. So there's a lot about graphs. So where do we find graphs on our cell phone? And just looking at my phone, there's so many different graphs which come up. How do we interpret them? How do we understand them? When we look at photoelectric effect, of course, the application is solar farms and solar powered cars and solar powered aircraft. How does the International Space Station get power? Not through an extension cord, but through solar power. And live demonstrations are done using Pasco software to actually show how solar panels work. Just another example, when we teach free body diagrams, the typical 4-force diagram for an aeroplane, I went on some training. You can see the same diagram there. And the training was so that I could actually fly an aeroplane. And so we've got some video of me flying an aeroplane, which really makes those free body diagrams come to life. Exams are important, and we very carefully try to compare and contrast exams. Instead of just giving answers, you don't need me for that. The memo will do. For example, what graph skills are expected and examples of all of them from past papers. When we do answer exam questions, we do it in the normal formal way, looking at the equations, doing the calculations, but we also use the simulations. You can see I've recreated the exam circuit, but this circuit in PHET actually works. And so we can bring in the voltmeter and ammeter, and we can actually show that the calculations we did for the exam actually work in real life. It makes it so much more real than just giving memo answers. Also, the human side of physics is important. Each video ends with a face-to-face interview with an important person from the world of physics. And you can see across all spectra, people in industry, people in academia, people in astronomy, and so on. And all of these are encouraging matric students to study hard at their physics. We also talk about what you need to pass. And I really try to encourage students, 30% might be a pass, but how would you feel if your dentist passed dentistry for 32%? Would that make you feel happy? What about your airline pilots telling you they got their pilot's license with 34% and haven't really successfully landed a plane yet? I think you can see the point. Finally, the implementation. This is how the process happened, feeding the content, exams, and so on into the booklets, then into the PowerPoint and the videos, feeding in the experiments and simulations. And then the booklets had to be printed, videos copied onto memory sticks. And Institute of Physics, again, was a great help to UniZulu Science Center, printing, distribution, and now they are being handed out. And I want to say to everyone who's listening, if you contact me and you can show that you're going to make good use of these videos, I will send some to you absolutely for free. Last year, we got the videos ready in August, so all we could do is get them out as quickly as possible. This year, we've looked carefully at when each topic is taught, and then we will encourage teachers to use the appropriate video at the appropriate time, at the rate of about 1 or 2 videos per month. What's new in 2021? When we look at our 4 skills, we found that equations actually had about 70% of the marks allocated. So we've got a whole lot of new sections around equations which have been added. We've also obviously added the November 2020 exams, and we now have a comparison of the last 3 exams that pupils can look for patterns. The booklet this year is 72 pages, not 48 like last year. The videos are now 16 hours long, where they were 8 hours before. There's an enormous amount of content available. Also, we're going to try and do the big 5 as UniZulu Science Center. We've done physics. We've also completed a series of essential skills life science work videos together with Cape Town Science Center. We're working on chemistry, and then we will turn to mathematics. So what are some of the advantages of videos rather than face-to-face? Now, if I just start at the bottom, for us at UniZulu Science Center, there's no venue hire or travel costs. We only present once. It was exhausting going on the road for 2 weeks, and our experiments always work. And you know, we used to present to 10,000 learners in 3 districts. Now learners all over South Africa can benefit in small learner groups, short 1-hour sessions, not a 4-hour session. The workshop takes place in school, so there's no travel, no disruption, no extra exposure to COVID, but free booklets thanks to our sponsors. This year we've printed nearly 3 million pages thanks to sponsors. And the teacher's in control, so the teacher can pause or replay at any time. Steve wants me to finish, I can see. Just quickly contrasting, what's the advantage? Why not just stream? Well, I don't think I need to address this question because you've seen all the problems we've had today with streaming. When you give teachers the videos on a memory stick, there's no connectivity issues, no ongoing data costs, and no scheduling issues. You can watch anytime, and it doesn't really matter. Disadvantages, to be honest, I miss the personal contact. I'm sorry I can't see all of you now. I really miss that contact. Virtual is never as good as face-to-face, but it certainly is more efficient. There is a cost to making the videos, but really I made them all using Zoom on my laptop. So it was only my time. Cost of memory sticks, well, David mentioned it costs 48 Rand to download a hip hop song. That's the cost of our 16 gig memory sticks. Of course, teachers may not use the materials, but they also may not use the online ones. So apart from on the memory stick, you can download the videos from the SAIP Institute of Physics page. We have a Facebook page called Essential Skills. CASME also has a streaming page, and then the Aneti page where the Ocean View residents can watch the videos for free. Just by comparison, I went onto Facebook, and if you join this system, which I'm sure is great, it's going to cost you 2,700 Rand per month, and you need fiber. If you join this system, 5,400 Rand for 4 days. Here's an offline system. This device has been distributed to some schools with videos on, but it's 9,000 Rand per device per pupil. Thank you so much for listening. We really look forward to your questions afterwards, and we would love to share all of these things even further.
Thank you so much, Derek. And I can assure you, I've known Derek for a long time, and he is the real deal. He's not just putting out videos and materials. He actually knows his stuff. And not only that, when you are someone who works in a science center, you have an obligation. We are the custodians of making learning real and fun. And he is definitely a practitioner and a member of our council of science communicators who go out of their way to really bring the content to life. And just judging from the comments in the chat here, Derek, you've got a huge fan base and everyone wants to know how they can get hold of you. So Derek, if you can please, in fact, Daniel and David, if you can type your contact details in the chat, I know a lot of people would love to get in touch with you to find out more. And David, we definitely need to chat about your system as well. But now we're going to hand over to Daniel Johnson. And thank you, Derek, for that very informative presentation. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Can you should share now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
There we go. You can see my slides.
Well, have you stopped? Oh, there we go. Now it's working beautifully.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Cool. Yeah. So what I'm going to be talking about. So firstly, as mentioned, my name is Daniel. I'm a master's student at the University of Cape Town and the current chairperson of the Golden Future Project. So I'm going to be talking a bit about what we've been doing to try to connect tutors to learners in this digitally divided world. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the work we do in this project, how we've had to adapt this work in response to the pandemic, and I'll try to share some of the lessons we've learned and hopefully inspire you as to the possibilities of online learning in a digitally divided world. So, Golden Future Project, we're a community-based outreach tutoring society, a community outreach tutoring society based at UCT. We have a team which consists of university students at various stages of their studies who have come together to work towards a common goal of improving access to quality education for young South Africans. Our mission essentially is to provide academic support wherever we can to high school learners from under-resourced schools in Khayelitsha and other parts of Cape Town. Our current team is 221 tutors strong, and we're providing tutoring in 18 different high school subjects to over 300 learners from around 50 different schools. We're really lucky in having a fantastically diverse group of tutors from all over South Africa, including some tutors who attended the very same schools which our learners are currently attending in Khayelitsha and other parts of Cape Town. So our help takes the form of everything from help with understanding coursework, guidance with projects and assignments, study skills while preparing for tests and exams, as well as practical help with things like putting together a project or using a computer to do research. And in addition to this, a key pillar of our work is aiding learners with their applications to universities and colleges. So that's a very important part of what we do. So this is what our program looked like before the start of lockdown. We used to have our buses would transport learners every Saturday morning to UCT from Khayelitsha, and we'd split our venue by subject, and as well as offer learners access to the UCT computer labs to do research. But as I'm sure you can imagine, none of this was possible once COVID arrived and once the lockdown began. So we had to adapt our approach. So we realized that it was going to be really, really important to continue to support the learners that we've been helping in our sessions. The communities were some of the hardest hit by the pandemic, and the disruption to the academic year was particularly devastating in the schools that we work with. Fortunately, all our learners who participate in the program register with their contact numbers, and we use a kind of a bulk SMS system to keep them updated about our sessions. In addition to this, a lot of them had heard about us from posters and flyers at their schools, or from word of mouth with their friends, and they would then contact us via WhatsApp to get more information about the program. So because of this made it possible to kind of conduct a survey as to the learners' access to technology and to better understand how we could connect with them remotely. So unfortunately, most of our learners don't even have email accounts. The few that do have set them up at their schools for a specific project and haven't been able to access them elsewhere. Every single one of them struggles with data and connectivity, as well as having even limited space on their, if they have a cellular device, limited space for new apps. A few of them have access to computers at their schools, but none of them could do so from home. So with these limitations in mind, we turned our focus to what kind of help we could provide that could be the most valuable. So unfortunately, none of our learners have parents who attended a university or college, and in most cases, their parents didn't have the opportunity to reach matric. Many of them are in classes with over 50 learners. So of course, as you can imagine, it's very difficult, no matter how good their teachers are, it's very difficult for those teachers to engage with them individually, and for the learner to be taught at the pace which is most appropriate for them. So from the messages we received from our learners, from our experiences when visiting their schools in Khayelitsha, and from what we've learned in the 10 or so years that the program has been running, we realized that the most important need that we could fill would be for tutors to be available to answer questions throughout the course of the week, every week that come up that the learners have. And not only that, but to have tutors who understood the specifics of the challenges each learner was facing individually. So the obvious solution that we realized was simply to tutor via WhatsApp. Firstly, this is very affordable for the learners. So many service providers offer reduced cost WhatsApp data bundles. So you can get, you can download video and audio and image on WhatsApp at a much reduced cost if you're on Cell C or various other bundles, which many of our learners have. WhatsApp also has a good compression algorithm for audio and video and images, which means that also further reduced costs. And almost all of our learners have WhatsApp already installed, or those that don't have a parent with it installed. And so there are no additional costs to downloading any new app or technology. It's also very familiar to our learners, so there's no barrier of entry. The learners know how it works, and they don't have to be taught how to use a new technology. And that's of course very important when it's impossible to hold in-person workshops to introduce a new technology. WhatsApp's useful because you can use a combination of text, images, audio, and video. And so we find that a multimedia approach is absolutely the way to go when explaining difficult concepts in tutoring, and WhatsApp makes that possible. But most important of all, is that it was by far the preference amongst our learners as to how they wanted to be tutored. So even before we sent out our survey, some learners had messaged us to ask if tutoring could continue via WhatsApp. And the results of our survey were overwhelmingly in favor of tutoring happening via WhatsApp. Of course, in the absence of in-person tutoring, which would be the first choice. I see. Can you still see my my screen? I don't know. My Zoom has done something strange. Is it?
I think you might have ended your presentation unless you want to share your screen again.
I would if possible. I don't know how that.
You just click on share screen. There we go. It's coming back.
There we go. Cool. Sorry about that. So yeah. So you might ask, well, how does WhatsApp tutoring work? Well, we match our tutors to learners based on their subjects. Once a week at an agreed time, the tutor will check in with their learner, see what they've learned that week, what concepts are giving them trouble, and the learner might say, oh, well, we've been covering electromagnetism, and then the tutor will ask questions to understand what information is stuck and what hasn't. But in addition to that, very importantly, the learner can send through questions at any time, and the tutor will respond as soon as they're able. So if the learner has a homework assignment due tomorrow, they can get conceptual help, right the day that they're working on it. As I mentioned before, the tutoring can happen with a combination of media, and because the learner and the tutor, because that match is maintained for the whole year, there's an understanding built up as to what forms of communication are most effective, specific to that learner. So and another advantage is, you may have already guessed, hearing Derek's speech, is that we have begun setting up a link with the Essential Skills video project. And so, for example, if a learner asks a question about something covered by those videos, which is becoming more and more of, it's already the complete physics syllabus, and there's already life science videos out, which is very exciting. Those videos have been split up into chunks which are specific to a question or a topic, and we can send those to the learner when appropriate, and that gives them, that can be very helpful. So how does our system actually work in the big picture? Well, we firstly let our learners know that this program would be happening via that bulk SMS system I mentioned, as well as by putting up posters at schools in Khayelitsha, and setting up and also just encouraging our learners to let their friends know via word of mouth. And the learners would then message us via WhatsApp, letting us know their contact information and the subjects that are giving them trouble. At the same time, our tutors would enter their contact information and the subjects and number of learners they're willing to help with on a Google form. That information could all be very easily stored on Excel sheets, and those Excel sheets could be fed into a Python code, which I wrote, which essentially, when you run it, reads in those Excel sheets and assigns learners to tutors based on their subjects. So, of course, you want to make sure that the tutors are those who are best able to assist in whatever the specific subject is, and as well as making sure that a tutor is only tutoring as many learners as they're able to help with. And so we feed those Excel sheets into the code. It makes those allocations, it prints out an email which we can then send to the tutors, giving them further instructions. And the Excel sheet is then automatically updated by the code. And so this can run continuously over the course of the year, making sure every new learner who contacts us is allocated a tutor within a week or so. Just to quickly go through some of the successes, so you can see here just a couple of the messages I've received recently from learners. So because I manage the WhatsApp messages, they often will get in touch with me to say how the tutoring has been going. So there's actually a couple of advantages we found over in-person tutoring with this, and already Derek has taken you through a lot of those. But a big one is that you have the same tutor matched to the same learner, and there's only a few learners per tutor, and so this help happening over an extended period means they get to know each other very well, and also that help can arrive when needed. So if there's if the student is struggling with something, they can get help that very day if the tutor is available, which normally they are. There are almost no operational costs. So in the entire year that this has been running, as I say, 221 tutors strong, our only costs have been we've supplemented some of our learners' data, because of course, even with those reduced rates, the data is still a big barrier to entry for many learners in the regions that we assist. And so we then supply data where we can to help those learners. But that's amounted to a few hundred rand for an entire year's worth of help. And so the costs have been minimal, which is fantastic, of course. we've had a very high level of engagement, very positive feedback from our learners. And it's very hard to measure across our entire group of learners the effect on marks, because they're spread across so many schools, and because many of them are quite shy about sharing their reports. But those that have been willing to have almost always shown an improvement of between 10 and 30% in the subjects that we've been assisting with, which is, of course, very exciting. It's a model that can work elsewhere, and via NETI, as David mentioned, there are messaging capabilities within that, and that's something that we can piggyback onto and expand the program to reach more people. So we're very excited about how we can grow this. Of course, it can never replace face-to-face learning and in-person teaching. There are limits to WhatsApp's functionality. You can't have, for example, a live whiteboard, and there is more we could do to automate the process. But these are not insurmountable challenges, and yeah, we look forward to continue to expand it. So I think I should end there, and if you have any questions, yeah, feel free. Otherwise, you're welcome to get in touch with me, or you can also see Golden Future Project's details down there. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Wonderful. Daniel, thank you so much for that presentation. I don't know about you, but I am deeply inspired by these three incredible presenters, because their projects are real solutions to a real problem. And I know that we'll start off with some of the questions that have been thrown at us in the chat. We've got about 15 minutes, and I really want to dig into them. I might not do them in order, but I'm going to give it a go. Some of them are obviously asking for your contact details. So if you are putting your contact details in the chat, that would be great, that they can just copy it from there, because if you're going to try and email all of them, it's going to be a little bit of a nightmare. We'll start off with one of the questions, and this is important from an infrastructure point of view, David. You have a system called Ineti. You take the system, you set it up within a community. What is the radius of the, what is the reach of this network? And more importantly, you did mention it has to connect to a local internet connection. Can you maybe just elaborate a little bit on that?
Okay. So it's using standard Wi-Fi. So the hotspots that we use outdoors have a range of about 50 meters. We tend to put them where a lot of people gather. So we find areas where there's a lot of population density. Even in some of the flats, you mount it on the side of one of the buildings, and it beams into some of the windows of some of the other flats. So that's kind of basically the range of Wi-Fi to a typical smartphone that most people have. In terms of internet access, so everything, if we didn't have internet access, the whole system would work. You could actually put the whole system there without any internet access and get access to the videos and all the material. But a lot of people also want cheap internet access. So we add that as an extra feature, and that's all it's there for. So people can buy cheaper vouchers than what they're paying, for pay-as-you-go, and they have the option of internet access. But it's not a compulsory thing. If you deploy this somewhere, you don't have to have internet access. It's an add-on.
So let me play devil's advocate. Let's pretend I am a university and I am very close to an area where people could benefit from this. What would happen if I said, you guys can make full use of our internet connection so that everyone in that area could have an Ineti network put in their section, and there is no cost to the internet?
Oh, right. So if there's no cost to the internet, then the value of the system definitely would decrease, because if you have free internet access, then you might as well put all these services online. And but
I see what you're saying.
Still, there's still another aspect. If the internet access is slow, the question is also, what does that internet access look like? So this also speeds up the access to the videos, especially video content. So even if you had internet access and a lot of people are sharing it, as you know, in your homes, it gets very slow. Having this local server speeds up the speed of especially video content. So it's not just a cost issue, it's also a speed issue.
Steve, can I chip in?
Yes, please, Derek.
Just to say as well, this is actually a great thing for science centers, because if a science center had an Ineti, the visitors who were there could connect to the material, could download it onto phones and laptops, and then view it later. So, it's a fantastic idea. It also in a way controls things. So on the server at Ocean View, it's got my videos and the teacher's videos and lots of other things. So the children are connected fast to good educational stuff and actually don't have access to all the junk which would otherwise occupy their time. So there's no TikTok link, for example.
I remember back in the day, there used to be a thing called a Freedom Toaster, and they had them at a couple of science centers where you could upload a whole bunch of resources, and anyone who came to the science center could literally send it to their phone or put a USB stick in and dump it onto the USB stick and walk out and have access to all these things.
Yeah.
Yes, we still have one in computer science department. It's sitting there. You would put a blank CD in, or it would give you a blank CD with all the content.
Correct.
But Ineti could be almost like a Freedom Toaster, but now you have a Wi-Fi link and you walk. So if you wanted to deploy the cheapest simple version, it'll just be a server, one Wi-Fi hotspot at a science center, for example. You walk up there with your phone, pull the content off like a Freedom Toaster and walk away.
That is incredible. That is incredible. So it's more like an intranet than access. Well, it's an intranet with access to the internet.
If you want access to the internet, but you don't have to.
But you
have
don't
that
have
aspect.
to.
But the Ineti server is a lot like an intranet. That's a good comparison.
All right.
Local content.
Thank you. And Derek, and I'm going to get you, Daniel, don't worry. We're going to be chatting about WhatsApp. So Derek, how do people get access to your resources? Because you did show a couple of pictures, but on a slideshow, no one can actually touch the slide and go, I want to click on that link. Yeah. So are you able to post those links in the chat? I do know that a lot of people would be very interested to access some of those things. And you did demonstrate the PHET simulations in your workshop, and I know that some questions about that were popping up in the chat as well. I take it you're going to be demonstrating that in your workshop after this session.
Right. So two things. First of all, I'm seeing lots of people in the chat saying, please email me. I can't follow those all up. You have my address. Send me an email, then I promise I will respond. And my email is in the chat, and David and Daniel will put theirs as well. Secondly, I will put some other links too. As I say, we've got a full set of physics videos, a full set of biology videos. We'd love your feedback. If you think they're boring or they should be like this or whatever, it would really help. And the thing with videos is it's really easy to change them. I did quite a lot of online teaching last year, and I want to tell you, trying to teach a class over Zoom just really does not work. And when the teacher has control over the video, we actually encourage the teacher, pause, let the children try the question before we go to the answer, let them do the experiment and so on. There's so much more power, and then there's no connectivity issues like all of us have had today.
Interesting. And then Daniel, of course, WhatsApp is fabulous because you can send voice, you can send image, you can send text. But of course, there is that option of, zero rating the whole of Derek's website, where all that content could be accessed on devices for free. So is there any move to get these things zero rated, so then it means it doesn't matter which cell phone provider you are with, you are still able to access the website content either with your cell phone or with a laptop, as long as I suppose you have to have a SIM card because you have to have a cell phone provider, but as long as you are able to access that website, all the content would be free, and that would make it a lot easier to then share the content on WhatsApp.
Oh, yep, absolutely. No, absolutely. And I really want to emphasize that WhatsApp, we found it to be a very helpful medium because of that kind of multimedia possibility. But I'd say the number one reason it works is because people are familiar with it and people are comfortable with it, and it's valuable to have a system which can which maybe has improved functionality or anything like that, but getting students on there and getting them using it outside of school on the weekends and things like that can sometimes be a challenge. And so we don't see WhatsApp as kind of a like an end solution to online learning, but rather a way of connecting with learners and encouraging them to then access other resources such as what David and Derek have been mentioning. Especially if these sites can be zero rated, then all one needs to do is send send a link or send a quick message explaining that via WhatsApp to our learners. And we've seen things spread like wildfire, and it's often been a negative thing in that how quickly information spreads on WhatsApp, but it can also be a positive thing. So whenever we share a link to a resource, learners forward that to their class groups, to all their friends, to everyone who's struggling, and so as a way of kind of bringing people onto those, to get access to those materials is I'd say the step that we've been focusing on, and the familiarity of WhatsApp has been really valuable in that. If that answers the question.
It does. Derek, how much? What does your entire system cost? If I'm a school and I want to access everything so that I can share it with all my students, what will it cost me?
It will cost nothing.
That much?
Obviously the real cost of this is my time, but because the University of Zululand employs me and underwrites the Science Centre, that time has been made available. Similarly, David Johnson's very skilled time also, and Daniel's, is not being charged for, and that's why these are possible. I've put all the contacts in. One of the things I want to say is for all of us, what we set out to do is, I don't think pupils need a second textbook. That only confuses them. They don't need exam papers and memos. Those are freely available from the Department of Education website. They need something which takes a different approach. I think that's really important. That's why we went for essential skills, cutting across all areas. And I think it's so important that we don't just give them more material. That will simply confuse them, but something different. I didn't answer your question about PHET. It is fantastic. I am personally in touch with the PHET developers, and I'm helping them with the development. And in my Room 3 session, quick advert after the break, I'll be talking a lot about PHET. It's a fantastic and free device for everybody. Thanks.
Excellent. David, how much does your system cost? I want to know the big number. And of course, you have to give specifics. So if I said to you, we've got a community of 1,000 people, what would it cost to put a system like this in place?
Yes. So I've just been answering a few people on that question. So the server costs about 10,000 Rand with 1 terabyte of storage. Intel NUC, that tiny little box you saw in the picture. Each Wi-Fi hotspot's about 1,500 Rand. And a hotspot should support about 20 or so users if they're living quite close together. So divide 1,000 by 20, you maybe need about 50 Wi-Fi hotspots. If it's in a fairly dense area. If it's rural and kind of spread out, then you're probably going to need more. But in a sort of township environment, that's what you would look at.
But many of the routers are offering you connectivity to up to 100 devices.
Yes, but if you're all going to be streaming video and so on, I wouldn't use that number. I mean, that's sort of a hard limit, but you're not going to get good performance.
I see. So obviously, performance does make a big difference.
Yeah.
And I mean, we are getting close to the end of our session. Are you three willing to stay during the break in case people would like to ask you some questions personally? Just for a few minutes?
Sure.
You would?
Yeah.
Excellent, because I can see you've generated a lot of interest over here. People would love to learn more. Before we go on to our break, I must just mention that a survey link has been sent out. I'll ask the tech team to please put that survey link again in the chat. We would love for you to complete the survey. This is our way of finding out if you are enjoying the conference. What are you learning? What are the takeaways? How can we fix things? How can we improve things? Because this is the first time it's ever happened. And yes, we've had to deal with a few things that are out of our hands, for example, internet connectivity. But of course, we want to make this far better for you as a participant and as an attendee, and for those of you that are watching live on YouTube. What we are going to do is we are going to take a break. Don't forget to tweet out hashtag STEMICOP 2021. If you want to take a little screenshot of you and your phone selfie and send that to Twitter so we know that you are watching live, that would be fantastic. What I would recommend is that we are going to take a short break from 1:30 to 1:45. And at 1:45, the new program director, Mr. Livuwani, will be coming along and he will introduce the next section. I do know that the next section is going to involve 3 rooms. Those links are going to be posted now in the chat for those of you that would like to join those 3 rooms. And he will explain what each of the rooms are. But I do know that Dr. Derek Fish will be presenting in one of the rooms and I will be presenting in another one of the rooms. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and that is going to end at 2:50. So we look forward to you people joining us again, and we are going to take a short 15-minute break. We'll see you back at 1:45.
Thanks,
and our panelists are just going to stay in the room. In case you have any questions, please feel free to throw a question at us in the chat, and our panelists will be happy to answer that.
Or if someone's brave enough to go live and ask a question, it's great to talk face to face.
Absolutely. If you put up your hand, Pumla, I see your hand is up. I'm going to allow you to talk. So Pumla, would you like to ask a question? Pumla, can you can unmute if you want to. Oh, no. Let's just see. There we go. Maybe Pumla doesn't want to ask a question. If anyone does want to ask a question, just put your hand up. We will see you in the attendees list and we can promote you. Pumla, did you want to speak? Not getting any audio there. I don't know if that's a technical issue or if that's just because she didn't want to speak, but let's find out if there is anyone else that would like to speak. Maybe the room doesn't allow, well, we're still in this plenary room, so our technical team can always enable people. All right, Idzai, you wanted to speak. I'm going to allow you to talk. There we go. Idzai, are you able to unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Well, Nick, okay, well, let's hear Nick.
Yep.
And then we'll do it. Okay, we're going to do, Nick, we're going to do Idzai first, and then we'll do Nick afterwards. Idzai, what is your question?
My question, I don't know whether it's related to this, but it's something that I thought when we started the workshops. I've heard that people, you can always register to be a SASTA member and get a certificate, but I don't know how it goes. Like, for example, particularly I'm from Zimbabwe. So sometimes when we want to apply, they do ask for such certificates, but I don't know how you register. They say it is more like the SAQA thing, but in this case related to science. So I wanted to get more information about it.
That's an interesting question. So are you talking about qualifications for an event where participants receive a certificate, or are you talking about organizing a venue where you would like to be SASTA qualified or certified? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, SASTA qualified.
Okay.
I don't know.
So Derek, if you as a science center obviously want to be aligned with what SASTA and SACE and all those other organizations are offering, is there a process that you need to go through?
Well, you know, the fact that the speakers from Zimbabwe is tricky because, of course, SACE obviously only applies to South Africa. It's really up, for example, SASTA would have to take this workshop and get it SACE accredited. I know the Institute of Physics has done that, and SASTA could contact them for details, contact Brian Massara. It is useful because then teachers get PDPs, professional development points, by attending. But from Zimbabwe, I really don't know, and I'd suggest that the questioner just takes it up directly with someone at SASTA. I don't think the three of us could help at all, sorry.
Okay, but Idzai, what we can do is maybe get someone from SASTA to get in touch with you. So if you want to just send a message to just text your email address to the panelists, hopefully someone from the technical crew will pass it on to SASTA and maybe we can assist you. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Nick, would you like to unmute and Nick would like to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
How's it, Nick?
How's it? I just had a question for David about the Ineti system.
Yeah.
I was wondering, when you talk about how the cost can be reduced for data charges, I'm wondering where that cost goes.
Where the cost goes.
Yeah,
So,
so I mean, surely you're working through some like you have a service provider for the system, surely?
at the moment, it's a volunteer project in collaboration with the University of Cape Town. So in a way, it's kind of like Daniel getting volunteers to help, answer WhatsApp. The cost is people's time, volunteer time, but I'm volunteering, other people are volunteering. But we do want to, and the other aspect is, the reason we also have internet access is we want the local community to be able to earn some income from selling internet, so that they can maintain the network, and if a Wi-Fi hotspot breaks, they have some income to go and repair it, and so on. But the actual development cost and the cost of building the system, because it's a UCT project, has all been volunteer so far. But we do plan to make this available to anyone in Q4 this year. And it's going to be by the server, put all the content on, follow these DIY instructions, or we might have an option where you can sort of pay to buy a pre-built system that we can ship, to be decided. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Steve, if I can chip in, I think Nick's question was more, David, around the end of the day, if you've got access to the internet, someone's paying as a service provider. And I think you've got some sponsorship, haven't you, for that?
Yes, at the moment, Liquid are sponsoring the 200 megabits per second backhaul line for a year. But after that, they will start requiring the community to start paying for the backhaul line. And the way they will pay for it is because they're charging for internet vouchers, 10 Rand a gigabyte. And they'll use that to pay for the backhaul link.
Okay, yeah, that does answer my question.
Excellent,
yeah.
Excellent. I see Xavier, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, can you hear me, Steve?
We can.
Hi, good afternoon. David, just an aside, I grew up in Ocean View. I'm now based in the West Coast, and I'm green with envy. And I'm green with envy at the moment. So I think I moved too soon. Just a question.
Did you go to Ocean View High School? So do you know Mr.
No. I grew up there, attended the primary school, but
okay. Not high school.
Okay. I just want to, the question I have is, you sort of partly covered it in the previous answer, is what is the involvement of the community in actually ensuring that the system is successful, or that the system is sustainable? What was your involvement in terms of getting that up and running? Because surely there's a component of community involvement required.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the most critical aspect by far, is making sure that there's ownership by the community and that it's fully maintained and run by the community. So what we do is we run workshops. We train people how to install and maintain the Wi-Fi system. And I've never installed one single Ethernet cable or access point or anything. I train and make sure that local people install and fix. In terms of the system, the Ineti system, I'm still doing active development with UCT on building and maintaining it. But in terms of putting content on, knowing how to use it. So teachers, for example, are on their own. They've been trained to create video content and upload it and make it available to students. But so there is full local ownership of the system, the services and the network.
Yeah, thanks, David. I just wanted to understand that was, because that process is also important. If you need to,
definitely.
Thank you.
Excellent. Then we've got Mayindi, and we've got time for another one more, because we've got to actually move into the next room. So Mayindi, would you like to unmute? Not working?
Steve, while we're waiting, I think we have to solve the double uncle problem.
What?
And
Oh, the double
explain-
uncle problem. So if I recall correctly, the question is, let's see if I've got it right. Derek and David are both Daniel's uncles, but are unrelated.
That's
So
it.
could that be uncles as in you call someone an uncle when you are younger out of respect?
No, proper
No,
uncles, proper.
real uncles.
Yep.
We're going to have to think this one through, because apparently, Derek, we have to actually move into our rooms so we can get ready for our presentation.
Yep.
But for those of you that joined us, thank you so much. We will have a solution for Derek about the uncle's problem. David and Daniel, I appreciate that you and Derek as well managed to stick around to answer some more questions. You've got their contact details. It's in the chat. Please join us at the next sessions. The links are now in the chat. Technical crew, if you can just reshare those links. And our next speaker will also tell you which rooms are in, but it should be on the program if you have access to the program. So maybe it might be worth sharing the program on the screen as well. And we appreciate that. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
we'll see
Steve.
you in the next 2 or 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And feel free to get in touch if you'd like to. You've got the email addresses out there.
Bye.
Thanks, Dave and Dan.
Hi, Luvwani. Can we please test your audio for the next session?